Alright, what's up gamers, it's Duplo. I guess it's time for my yearly YouTube comeback. But this time I'm not even gonna pretend like I'm gonna return to playing actively, it's not gonna happen. But yeah, I still wanted to make a little video talking about a potentially very interesting topic that has something to do with gaming and this channel and all these things. And that is the concept of nostalgia. Nostalgia is a dangerous drug if you're not careful, especially nowadays as everything is constantly changing and you're just looking for things to hold on to. But let me start at the beginning, let me find a good intro to this. So, first of all, I think nostalgia is generally a neutral thing. It's not my intention to demonize it in this video. In fact, I think it can be very positive to look back at things that you used to enjoy. Nostalgia can be great inspiration for future projects, or also simply a fun pastime. You can walk through a town that you used to live in for a few hours, or play a game from your youth once in a while, and all that can be just nice. You know, oh, that was cool. But the problem is that this has gotten completely out of hand, and nostalgia dictates a worryingly big part of many of our lives. That's my contention here. If I had to guess, I would say that well over 50% of my entire gaming activity has been entirely fueled by nostalgia. This feeling of trying to relive something that's just not there anymore. And this doesn't only apply to gaming, but also other media consumption. Gaming is just the example that I'm gonna use here because, well, it's a big thing for many of us, and that's what this channel's been about. Modding and speedrunning New Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Wii. My favorite video game. The first time I came in contact with it was Christmas, I think 2009. That was a long time ago. And yeah, I did the typical thing, played it with my family and friends, it was very exciting and new, we got a little bit further every week or so that felt like adventurous. Very nostalgic even thinking about it. But yeah, you know the deal, probably many of you had a very similar experience. If not with Mario Bros. Wii, then maybe another game or a few other games, doesn't matter. It always felt very fun and exciting to play them, and you made many memories along the way. But the thing is, at some point you always moved on. You found another interest, another hobby, maybe another game or a book series. Toys don't last forever when you're a kid. And this is because I think for that initial fun phase you really have to be experiencing something new. You need to have this feeling of making progress, discovering stuff, learning new things. This is a huge part of why we play games or read books or get into hobbies. And that's why many of these things dry out after some time, especially when you're very young and there are all these other potential things to learn or discover. And you don't even have to finish the game, for example. If it becomes repetitive and you don't feel like you're really making progress or learning something interesting, that's when it stops being engaging. And you naturally have to look for something else. And this is sort of what nostalgia has disrupted on a macro level, but we'll get to that. The thing is, for me, I obviously moved on, I didn't stick with Nintendo games all the time, although I was never the person to try out many different games. I always played like one or two actively, and I really wanted to be good at those. That's always been my move. Around 2016 I got really annoyed with Minecraft, which had been my main game for some time. Specifically PvP, because that was horribly toxic. Like, very bad. I didn't have any fun anymore when I quit. For some time I didn't even play any games, but I still wanted to find one where I could be good. One that I could enjoy grinding again. And this is precisely where nostalgia came into play for me. Because I remembered how fun it was just playing Mario Kart or Mario Bros. Compared to sweating against cheaters on Badlion. So I booted up my old Wii and I replayed Mario. Took me some time to beat it, because I was still trash, but I really liked it. It just felt like the thing that I had been missing. And it was an awesome nostalgic endeavor, rebeating these levels and re-exploring these worlds. Now, it didn't just stay at that, of course. I could have just looked at the game and concluded, alright, that was fun and nostalgic, let's move on to something else. But at this point I had already been conditioned to look at games as something to master, something to grind. So in 2017 I bought a Wii U. I was probably the only person who did that at the time, but I had a very good reason. I wanted to get more of that nostalgia by playing New Super Mario Bros. U and Mario Maker. Because it was so much fun to play Mario Bros. Wii, I really wanted to experience that same thing again by exploring the worlds of Mario Bros. U. Which is basically the same game with the same movement, just new levels and stuff. So that's what I did. Along with this, I also replayed some of my other favorite nostalgic Wii games, and I bought a few new ones for the Wii U that were very similar, simply because all of that felt very comforting and it reminded me of the good old days when gaming was the most fun. I'm not gonna summarize my whole journey here because that's immaterial, but eventually I ended up just modding and speedrunning New Super Mario Bros. Wii, which I've also been making videos about since 2018. By the way, my first channel got deleted by Google without any warning or reason, but it wasn't big anyways. The point is, I played and made countless custom levels and I did many speedruns. And probably all of them can be traced back to me trying to relive that experience that I had first playing the game. The best custom levels were always the ones where I felt like I was exploring a new immersive environment. The most satisfying speedruns were always the ones where I had to master a new shortcut, a new move, and to finally bring it home after many attempts. And if you think about it, this is really just exactly the same thing as playing the game for the first time, in terms of feeling. You're exploring a new world, you have to learn a new move to progress. It's just that the first time it maybe takes you countless attempts to reach the checkpoint of a level, and now it takes you countless attempts to skip the checkpoint of a level with a mid-air shell jump, whatever that speedrun requires. But the reason why you're having fun or experiencing ups and downs is the same. And with custom levels and mods, this connection is even more obvious. You're slightly rearranging everything, making it a bit more difficult, so that you and other players can experience this excitement again of exploring a new world. Now, all of that probably makes a lot of sense so far. It might even seem trivial to some of you, like, yeah, obviously, this is why games are fun. But this is where it gets interesting. Because nostalgia specifically is a thing that heavily manipulates this natural dynamic. You see, when something is nostalgic, you don't have to be experiencing something new and exciting necessarily. You don't have to learn a completely new skill for it to be pleasurable. You can simply remember how new and exciting it felt in the past, and you get this sort of emulated feeling of progress. That's what I'm gonna call it. And this emulated feeling of progress is often just enough to keep you going. Now, depending on the situation, you can get very unique combinations of real and emulated feelings. When you replay Super Mario Galaxy for the first time after 7 years, it feels very nostalgic. But you've probably also forgotten about some galaxies, some plot twists, especially the details like collectibles. So it's a nice mixture. You get this emulated feeling of progress through nostalgia, but also some real feelings of progress, because you don't remember everything and many things feel new. These first replays of nostalgic games were some of the best gaming experiences that I had, I'm gonna be honest. Because you know it's gonna be good, but not exactly how. So it feels safe and reliable, but still a little bit fresh. That's how I would summarize it. But here is the big problem. Modern technology has given us the tools to repeat this process infinitely and slowly drift toward a state of consumption where nostalgia and emulated feelings of progress take up a bigger and bigger part of the enjoyment. That is the issue. You can always play another mod that has a little bit new stuff. You can always do another speedrun involving another trick. If the movement or the gameplay of the base game feel good to you, you can enjoy it over and over again with tiny iterations. And nostalgia and familiarity will increasingly become the factors that keep you in. I've played quite a few Mario Bros. Wii and U mods, so in order for me to experience a true feeling of progress, some real immersion, a mod has to offer something spectacularly new at this point, which happens almost never. But they're still all kind of fun, simply because the classic Mario gameplay feels satisfying and nostalgic. Every time. So it's the state of somewhat enjoyment, which can happen in lots of different ways in different games. I don't know if I explained this super well, but it's actually quite simple. Nostalgia is the glue that sticks you to things you should have probably moved on from. It allows you to feel satisfied with unnecessary and time-consuming activities that you deep down don't even really enjoy. Playing another one of these half-baked mods, doing another one of these niche speedruns, creating another Minecraft world. Always feeling these fractions of the initial fun phase, combined with superficial innovations that make you feel like it's justified. And if you look around now, you will realize just how much of the gaming world is built around this nostalgic, somewhat enjoyment. This is what makes people buy another Call of Duty game that's exactly the same and just costs more. There is always this hope that it's going to be as fun as it was when you first played a shooter campaign. Or a new era is going to begin with a new Mario Kart, just like back in the day. But it doesn't happen. This nostalgia is a very universal phenomenon in gaming. People just inevitably drift there if they spend enough time playing games, always hoping that the new games can live up to the old ones, or just playing the old ones over and over again, either just so, or as a speedrun, or modded, or whatever. Minecraft is an excellent example for this. This game, by its very core design, invites this formula to flourish uncontrollably. It was an innovative game, no doubt. Pretty much every gamer has some exciting memories with it, exploring new biomes, finding new mobs, learning new crafting recipes or how to build something. Lots of cool stuff, very engaging. But every time you make a new world, you basically do the same thing again. You look for wood and food, you make the crafting table, you farm the iron and go explore a few biomes for interesting structures. It's technically super repetitive, but the world is always a bit different, and you can make progress in a different order if you want. So you can play these tiny iterations over and over again. And people actually do that. It's amazing how popular Minecraft Vanilla still is. I know there was this huge nostalgic revival of it during the pandemic, but it hasn't really calmed down, it feels like. People are still absolutely stuck there. Anyways, it's not my point to dunk on any specific gaming scene here, although I would really like to. But for now I just want to highlight this general principle of nostalgia and how it's managed to creep in literally everywhere. Now, you might ask yourself, if it's still fun, what's the problem? What am I really getting at here? I mean, so far I've pretty much only explained different ways to have fun in video games, and how that kind of evolves over time. But if you really enjoy speedrunning and playing Minecraft again and again, why should this be an issue? Isn't it just a fun and relaxing pastime? No, all this indulgence in nostalgia has long-term consequences. The problem with these emulated feelings of progress is that, number one, they are not the real thing. It's never as much fun as you imagine. It's never the same as it was back in the day. But you have this expectation that it could be, the nostalgia, and this keeps you going and going and going. Making another speedrun, making another custom level, buying another game. Always searching but never truly finding. We are drawn to these things that are supposed to be fun. It's Super Mario, it's gonna be good. It's Call of Duty, it's gonna be good. And maybe it is just a fun pastime, and it's fine for the moment to somewhat enjoy these games again. But here is the really bad thing about it. You don't make any new memories. When you indulge in nostalgia, your brain is already busy recalling memories, so it's not really creating new ones. In order for you to remember something well, there really has to be something special, something new, something emotional. Remember your first day of school? Yeah? Then what about your 22nd day of school? Still have some memories of your first Minecraft world? Possibly? How about your 9th one? You know, I'm absolutely not saying that it's impossible to make memories with things you are used to, but the probability that you do drastically goes down the more something becomes routine. It just gets normalized. And this is exactly what gaming has become for so many people. All these emulated feelings of progress are not sufficient. They may be satisfying in the moment, but you will remember nothing. Maybe that one super special level in a mod that you played, maybe this absolutely insane round of Minecraft Bed Wars, once in a blue moon. But overall, the more something is known to you, the more nostalgic it is, the less surface area there is for your brain to attach any meaningful memories. This is the unfortunate truth that makes time fly by as you try to find fun games to play in your adulthood. Maybe it's not really supposed to happen anymore, and that's why it's difficult to feel truly immersed and make memories. You probably have to be a lot more analytical than you think when you have some spare time and decide that you want to play a game. You don't want to regret or forget what you did. But this happens very easily due to this huge amount of comfortable, nostalgic, somewhat fun options that we have. Along with these new, obviously addicting, brain-rot pseudo-gambling games, I don't think I have to make a case for why you shouldn't play those. But I want to highlight these problems that arise from the oh-so-awesome nostalgia games that are a lot more attractive to human beings capable of thinking. Because it's still a dangerous trap, and it's very easy to convince yourself that you're having fun when actually it's never really what you're looking for, and you're just spending way too much time. For me, Mario Kart was always a bit different, because that was a social thing. I did play it online for some time, and that was fun, but never a lot. It was mainly something I played like once every few weeks with my friends for an hour or two. And that's just very unproblematic, I think. Everybody has fun playing Mario Kart once in a while, you can do it at a party, and it's way more likely that you make memories because there is real life involved in local multiplayer. At least in my experience. But this solo grind, this individual search for nostalgia, the speedrunning and modding, that's such a big time sink. If you have to invest 20 hours to beat a Mario Maker level in order to still feel any emotion, maybe it's not supposed to happen, you know? Maybe this is a sign that you should move on. And I get it, it's the grind, the longer the journey, the better the payoff, blah blah blah, I've done it myself. But it's still weird. I don't think you're supposed to invent so many new challenges for yourself in a video game. Yes, it can all be fun. Yes, there are mods and games that can be super enjoyable even for veteran gamers. But I claim that most of the time it's just not. The expectation almost always outshines the reality by a mile. And video games used to be way more fun than they are now. Alright, maybe this doesn't exactly reflect your experience with gaming and nostalgia, but I'm sure there are enough people who can relate to this. And you can definitely see this attitude, this sentiment toward media in so many places. I'm gonna run with the assumption that this is the case in one way or another for most of us. So, if it's not really authentically fun and we deep down know it, why are we still drawn to the nostalgia? Why is it so powerful? Well, this is the part of the video where I'm going to punch way beyond my weight as a designer. I mean, we're on the internet, who cares? But yeah, I think so far it was pretty good, I'm quite confident about the stuff that I said, but now it's gonna get a bit more speculative. I claim that the main reason for why nostalgia has such a tight grip is because it touches on something very fundamental, and that is the need for stability, continuity and control. These are things that are very important, but they are becoming increasingly rare in many aspects of our lives. And I mean that very generally. From products obviously that have shorter and shorter life cycles, partially by design, partially because technology simply evolves, to memes and trends which come and go even faster. And the economy and society itself are changing too. People are moving around everywhere and constantly, you never go to class with the same people for more than 3 years, the employing companies come and go, every generation consumes different media, and increasingly a different form of media. Not even the way people talk and interact is stable. If I look at kids 8 years younger than me, they literally speak a different language at times, both in German and English. They have different apps for communication, a different humor, different behaviors that are normalized, all this kind of stuff. I don't want to go too much into the society rant here, but I think you get the point. Everything is just kind of speeding up. People are never staying in a place for too long, both physically and culturally. If I look back at my childhood, it's already like an entirely gone world. And I'm not even old. School breaks without smartphones, local multiplayer on the N64 once a week. These are things that my kids won't be able to relate to, because their world will be entirely different. Now, this is certainly not exclusive to my generation, but the fact that this rate of change is increasing makes nostalgia especially powerful. The difference in lifestyle between the 2020s and the 90s is so much more than the difference between the 1990s and the 1960s. Never mind the difference between 1815 and 1820 or something. I mean, I already have some nostalgia for the time before the pandemic. Seems almost ancient at this point. And I think deep down this is something very uncomfortable to understand. The world you live in is constantly dying. Cross-generational advice is becoming more and more irrelevant, because nobody knows what's coming. Real-world knowledge is getting outdated in many areas. The skills that will be demanded by the labor market are uncertain. And when it's time for you to show your kids which awesome things you did in your youth, those will be completely outdated too. The games you used to play will be uninteresting, because they don't even have smell and taste or whatever. There is of course a lot more to say here about the effects that this instability and unpredictability has, but this would be too much for this video. It's just that we've pretty much all understood and accepted this constant change, that we don't really have a say in. This is the way we live now. But we not only have more reason to experience nostalgia, but also more tools. Back in the day, you maybe had an old book to go back in time, or perhaps a painting that you could look at. but the way we can experience nostalgia now is incomparable. Super Mario 64 has sounds, it has music, colorful environments where you can move around, and it's still exactly the same as when you first played it. Video games, shows and movies are all able to carry an immersive vibe by stimulating multiple senses, and they are finished products, so this vibe will not change, and you will always be able to access it whenever you feel like you need a little dose of nostalgia. But then we have these new evolutions in media that allow us to go even further with the nostalgia, because we can now modify the games to our liking, in case they get boring. So we get a nice emulated feeling of progress because we're exploring a new level, and a nice emulated feeling of stability because we've mastered the movement a long time ago and we know what we're doing. It's a perfect combination. And it's kind of the same principle in speedrunning or watching spin-off shows of nostalgic genres. Media offers an easy escape to the confusion of the real world by providing an emulation. It's not just an emulated feeling of progress like in games, but an emulated feeling of stability. And that is becoming more and more dominant, I think. Because the era where we seek out cool new experiences in video games and shows is over for many of us anyways. We've seen it all, we kind of know how games work and how shows are structured. Something truly surprising or innovative is incredibly rare. So rather than expecting excitement, we increasingly turn to that media simply to feel comfort and stability, because it's nostalgic. And in real life, it's not as easy to get that feeling that you're in control. That's the big shift in media consumption that I'm noticing in many places. It was certainly true for me during the last months of activity in the Mario Bros modding scene. When I played a hack, it was rarely the case that I authentically expected to be truly immersed by the amazing new stuff it has to offer and teach me. I was fully aware that such an anticipation would likely be disappointed. But I still played quite a few of these fan games, simply because I enjoy the basic concept of 2D Mario. If the levels are somewhat well put together, they don't even have to be creative, because the physics of Mario are fun, and the journey to collect star coins and reach the goal is reliably nostalgic. The classic critique of video games that you'll hear a lot is that they offer these artificial feelings of progress. You can discover new stuff, level up your skills, feel like a hero, in an artificial environment where all that takes very little effort compared to real life. And that is definitely true. This makes video games very appealing, but predominantly to young people. This theory, in my opinion, fails to explain why people play the same games or very similar games over and over again, even as they get older. So this is my contention. It's less the cool new stuff that makes video games fun, and more the nostalgia that fills the need for moving in an environment where you know what's going on and you have control. It just vaguely reminds you of the fun you used to have, and that's enough. This is why people play Minecraft over and over again and make Mario mods that all look the same. Because it feels safe, because it's an emulation of stability. With a little bit of a twist every time so it doesn't feel completely pointless, but in the grand scheme of things it still is. Because you can't share it with your community and you can't make real memories. The only community with whom you can share these experiences will be on the Discord servers and subreddits for your niche interest. And that's not the goal, sorry guys. It's not all that bad when there is something truly new involved, because you can actually learn. For example, I like to believe that my mod, Super Mario and the Cliffs of Spring, offers a little bit more feeling of progress than nostalgia, because it looks and plays so different. And while making it, I definitely didn't just try to recreate a past experience, but I really wanted to make something new. I was talking with other level designers about possible innovations and how to create a new vibe, working out technical solutions. You know, there was a lot of creative learning and imagining, and I was probably thinking more about the future than the past. Obviously, I'm trying to justify me spending way too much time making it, but I just have to be optimistic. There are of course better fan games that are even more innovative, but there is way too much stuff that just relies on nostalgia. Just look around yourself. And this makes me worried. Now, I've ranted about speedrunning and modding and replaying games, because that's what I expect most of you guys are doing. But here is something to feel good about. All of that is not nearly as bad as spending money on it, which people actually really like to do. You just have to look at popular culture. All these remakes and spin-offs, part 2, part 3, part 4, remastered, all that stuff lives by the fact that people are just trying to LARP their past self. I mean, yeah, I've laid out some significant problems with modding and speedrunning, But when the nostalgia combines with standard consumerism, that's when it gets bad. Like these people who buy all the Nintendo plushies and grown-ups who go to Disney World. You probably know what I mean. There is something very disturbing about that. Nostalgia is what allows companies like Lego and Nintendo to raise prices without even innovating. That's the only reason. Criticism of this trend is common. People are complaining all the time about the remakes and stuff. But there are still enough consumers who keep it going. Even fashion trends are often just throwbacks to a past decade. It all works perfectly and spins around. You may not know anyone anymore who you went to elementary school with, but the media from that time is stable. You can still play the same games, you can rewatch the movies. And sometimes the companies who made them are kind enough to throw out some spin-off or remake to give you an emulated feeling of progress on top of that. Congratulations! Now, I don't watch shows or movies anymore, so I'm gonna keep this short, but you probably see the pattern at this point. It's all one great, reliable, uninnovative cycle that relies on people seeking out comfort and familiarity from their past experiences. I'm not saying that there always has to be progress within a medium, because this is the excuse that people use. Well, what are we supposed to do if they don't make good new games and shows? I have to replay Minecraft, I have to rewatch Game of Thrones, I have to buy Switch Sports Resort even though I've played Wii Sports Resort to death. And no, you don't. It's voluntary media consumption. If there is nothing interesting anymore, it's not that you're supposed to go back to the interesting stuff of the past, but maybe just leave it and do something else entirely. By indulging in nostalgia, you're just fueling this endless cycle of cultural decay and wasting your own time. Alright, this video has kind of escalated into a gigantic rant, but let me actually try to finish positively. Yes, I think that's possible. You can keep your favorite games fresh by either playing them rarely or socially. These are my heuristics that I feel comfortable recommending. Solo grinding and speedrunning can probably be okay from time to time, but you have to be a lot more careful. Be aware what I told you about nostalgia sucking you into things that you don't really enjoy, and preventing you from learning and making memories. The simplest way to avoid regret is obviously to just not do it and live in real life. Because it's not as impossible to create real stability as it may seem. Not necessarily easy, but it's the only way. Learn some reliable skills, get some tools that you'll be able to use later on, join a club or whatever, go running with the same people every week. You know, these very simple things will go a long way. I don't know exactly how it's possible to create real stability on a larger scale. But it will not come to you automatically, especially if you're busy watching another Minecraft speedrun. And as you keep indulging in media, you will have to do more and more absurd things to keep it fun. You'll have to find more and more time-consuming challenges, speedruns and projects. And if you're not able to share these experiences with real people around you, you will regret it sooner or later. You have to try to justify what you did. Is there any way for you to use your skills and knowledge on something more long-term? Something more stable, more shareable? Maybe you learned persistence in speedrunning that you can now use in sports, or stuff like that. For me, I like to make lots of art now, and I wouldn't know nearly as much about composition had I not done hundreds of hours of 2D level design. And the program that I'm using for the most part, Krita, is one that I originally learned to create graphics for my Mario hacks. Many principles from the theory that I teach, like color theory or the arrangement of elements on a 2D plane to create interest, are ones that I discovered when I made Cliffs of Spring, and that is so valuable now. Recently I made myself a website, you know, just a simple web page where I share my artworks, projects, some writings, duplodesigns.com, check it out, and I learned HTML and CSS from scratch to make it happen. I am a really untechnical person. I don't like coding or using new programs very much, and it takes me ages to understand these things. But it was precisely modding New Super Mario Bros. Wii that taught me, hey, you can actually solve these technical problems if you really want. You can learn these programs and fix these bugs. And that really came in handy when I made my website. So, all in all, it's probably fine to do some gaming here and there and even some modding and speedrunning. But the more something is just nostalgia, the less there is to learn from it, naturally. The less creative and technical requirements a mod has, for example, the less opportunity you have to learn stuff that you could also use somewhere else. So, I hope you at least had your own projects and hacks where you could derive some practical lessons about, I don't know, project management, graphics, coding. Just consuming never does anything, but this should be clear. So I try to view it positively, although that may be very optimistic. Was it worth my time to create Cliffs of Spring? Well, I'm not really sure. At least I'm happy about the final thing, and I like to think that it has helped me in art and design tremendously, which I'm really enjoying now. I know art and design can be niche too, but guess what? I can share it with people in real life. This is a contribution that others around me can enjoy, unlike a frickin' Zelda speedrun. It's gonna be way more fulfilling long term to be able to code websites and showing them to people around you instead of coding a new enemy into Pokemon and sharing it on Discord. Alright, I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point. You get it, so I'm gonna wrap this up. My god, what a chaotic video. Way too long, I know. At least it was a little bit optimistic and instructive in the end. That's generally what I want to do on the internet. Share useful skills and concepts, instead of just vibing or yapping. But yeah, I think that's basically all I wanted to say. If your Mario mod is so uninnovative that it relies on nostalgia, do us all, including yourself, a favor and just cancel it, bro. Take your skills and put them somewhere else. Stop consuming, create stability, check out my website, touch grass, whatever. That's it. See you guys next year, I guess.